Hello, good evening. Welcome back to the Done Deal Show live. Lots of transfer rumours, managerial merry-go-rounds to talk to, plus just a chance really to reflect. It's not the morning where I am, but it feels like the morning after the night before. An amazing day yesterday as a Manchester United fan. Still absolutely chuffed, pleased as punch with winning the FA Cup for a 13th time. Stories around Ten Hag to go into today, give you my views, my opinions on that. We will be opening up the lines for you to come on and have your say. Before you do that, though, please join the Football Terrace Telegram group chat. We have a number of journalists working for us this year, posting news, updates, articles before it goes out into the mainstream. It's all free of charge for you. Plus, all the links to our shows will be shared in there as well. Of course, Done Deal Show, the likes of Dean Jones, Ben Jacobs over the course of the summer will be back on as ever. And where to start today? It's a question where to start. And I actually want to start with Manchester United. And I want to start with Manchester United because yesterday, as I say, we made some more history by winning a trophy. The third and fourth teenager in our history, the score in an FA Cup final. Loads of great things like that. We also broke City's unbeaten record, Rodri's unbeaten record, Pep's 100% record in UK domestic finals. And I want to start with Ten Hag. There was, of course, on the eve of the final, the news came out from Jacob Steinberg that the manager had already been told that he is dismissed. And since everybody thought United were going to get pumped in the final, they didn't. Maybe the best performance of the season. I've actually felt since we got beat by Crystal Palace, there was a fundamental change in how we set up in the games. And I've been quite impressed with this. If you've all been watching, I've said that. And my sort of view on the Ten Hag situation hasn't changed. And maybe we'll touch on that a bit later. But he did start to do, but it was just a little bit too late for me in many respects to change the system, which is what I felt needed to happen all along. And I heard a lot of pundits yesterday talk about, well, where has this Man United team been? And of course, injuries play a big part. But the reason why, and by the way, this shirt is lit, bruv. And I will say this to people, if you don't like it, I don't care. Where we like wearing in life. I like these. It's not quite silk, but it's one of my Tony Sopranos. I've bought a lot of shirts like Tony Soprano wore. They're just so comfortable and light and airy. It's brilliant. I like it. And I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I don't let clothes wear me. I wear them. Do you get my drift? But Man United started to make fundamental changes. So, of course, now everybody's, is Ten Hag going to go? Is Ten Hag going to stay? The club have briefed the media in the last 24 hours that no final decision has been made. Now, you may believe this, you may disbelieve this, and we're being briefed on what we're being briefed. A story that has come out today, though, which is really interesting. This comes from Pete Hall, who has stated that the decision on Ten Hag's future will be based on the last 2 years he managed Man United, not Saturday's result. So, yes, Man United are going to let the dust settle, as the likes of Ornstein has said. I think Laurie Whitwell has come out and stated that no final decision has been made. Those are direct briefings from Manchester United Football Club. And that's what the club's saying. But when you go deeper into the briefing, Man United have been very clear in stating that the decision will be based on the 2 years' performances and progression, not Saturday's result. So it tells me that Ten Hag's job is still up for debate and up for question, and everybody's got a different view as to whether he should stay or not. Mine still remains the same, and that is that I think for quicker, more productive growth, I believe we need to overhaul everything. Most of this squad has got to go. The board has gone, medical teams, and I do believe the coaching staff as well. But I'll keep the same attitude I have all along. If the club decide to keep him, I'm going to get behind that decision. I'm going to actually support it, be as encouraging and supportive as I can possibly be, even if it goes against what I want, because this isn't about Terry Fleurs' agenda. It's about Manchester United Football Club, and I trust the football decision makers now at the club. Coupled with the Ten Hag conversation today is reports that Man United have held discussions with representatives of Thomas Frank and Pochettino as they continue to explore their options ahead of a final decision over the future of Erik Ten Hag. And we know also that the likes of McKenna, Thomas Frank, Zerbi, Tuchel, all of these players Man United have either had direct conversations with or they have spoken to representation. And from my point of view, as I say, I'm glad that we're doing that due diligence. I'm glad that we're looking at our opportunities. I'm glad that we're looking at our options. I don't necessarily understand at this point all the managers we're linked to, because they don't all play a very similar style of football. So it would suggest from the outside looking in, are they fixated on a style of play yet? But at the same time, we were linked with 101 CEOs. And the CEO we employed, not one single media outlet reported we were going to employ. So I'm also remaining level-headed. I don't quite get the stories, but I'm not using it as an opportunity to beat Ineos over the head, because I'm going to wait for the proof in the pudding regarding that situation. We all know my personal preference if you've watched the Terrace before. If you haven't, look, out of all the managers we're linked to, forget my dream. I'm talking managers we are linked to in the media. There's no point me saying Zidane. There's no point saying Pep or Ancelotti or Klopp. These managers are not coming to Man United. Inzaghi's not coming. Motta's not coming. Simeone's not coming. So just forget talking about them, because it's just an irrelevant conversation. Out of all the managers we're linked to, my number one preference personally would be Zerbi. We'll get onto him a little bit later in this show. But I'm very open-minded to anybody that comes in and or Ten Hag staying. My biggest request at Man United has already been answered. And that was we had to get top-class football decision-makers in to run the club. We've done that. That's what I was asking for. That's more important to me than manager or the head coach. Always has been. So I can't suddenly start being a hypocrite on that and moving in the other direction and talking about, well, I want this manager and I want this style of player and I want this individual. I'm not that arrogant. Some of you disagree, but I'm not. So the Ten Hag situation, look, my personal opinion is I think he's a dead man walking. My personal opinion is I think they'll let him go. My personal opinion is they'll move him on. I don't think they'd wait till now to make that decision public if they were going to keep him. Because if it isn't based on Saturday's result, you'd have told him win, lose, or draw before the game that your job's safe. You wouldn't leave it until now, in my humble opinion. So reading between the lines, looking at all the stories, I do believe he will go. My personal feeling is that's best for Man United. But look, I hope it is. And if you disagree that it's what's best for Man United, you've got to hope to be wrong, because surely you want Man United to get better. And I really hope the Man United fans don't go down the road other fan bases have done when they don't get what they want and it becomes an agenda-filled, hate-fueled attack against their own football club. Be objective about this situation and give it time to marinate, give it time to cook. Let's wait and see the fruits of this labor before we throw our toys out the pram. That's my only real message to Man United fans. Whether I get what I want, whether you get what you want, let's get on board with one another and try and make the best of this situation. That's the way I view it personally. But I know the world doesn't work like that anymore. It did when I was growing up. It doesn't seem to anymore. You know, if I was at work and 3 or 4 of us felt that we should go down Avenue A and 3 or 4 said we should go down Avenue B and we decided on Avenue B, me and my colleagues would work as hard as possible to make that a success. I feel like we live in a world now where people don't get what they want. They try and sabotage the direction that you went in so they can say, told you I was right. And I've never understood that logic, that mindset. It's not how I'm built as an individual. But of course, we know that it exists. Terry flip-flopping on Ten Hag. Not at all. A few people have said that to me yesterday, going, well, why were you congratulating him? Of course I was going to congratulate him. Performed well against Arsenal. Beat Newcastle, beat Brighton. Won the FA Cup after making changes. Changing his system. Bringing people into the team. Keeping individuals like Amrabat in the side based on meritocracy. He stopped putting AWB at left back, kept him on the right where he's at his best, and all these little things. So I praised it. I still want him to go. I think that's the best move for Man United. It's not a personal vendetta against the manager. But if they decide to keep him, I'm going to trust the football decision makers that they know what they're doing. That isn't flip-flopping. It's called being a grown-up. It's called being an adult. And it's called not having an agenda. Well, I do have an agenda, but I don't have an individual agenda against a particular player or manager. I have an agenda of doing my best to help Man United get back to the very top. Goldbridge is Ineos out if you sack Ten Hag. Look, I've seen that clip of Goldbridge going around. I haven't watched the full video, so I don't know the context of it. But being Ineos out because they do something you individually don't like, I think is wrong. Objectively speaking, I think it's wrong because let's wait. If we end up becoming a better team next year, are you then going to say I want them gone still because they did something I didn't like? You know, I'm pretty sure when the dust settles, whatever they do, Mark will get behind them. He'll get behind the new manager. But emotions, of course, running high at this particular moment in time. This year says, how the hell can they even think about sacking Ten Hag? If they do that, they are no better than the Glazers. Ten Hag groomed Van der Beek, De Jong, De Ligt. But the thing is that you're looking at the positive areas, and there are definitely positives about him. There are definitely positives about Ten Hag as a manager. I don't think he's a bum. I don't believe he's gonna leave here and have an awful career. Not in any way, shape, or form. But there are lots of things that I've been told by people close to the football club and sources that are not particularly good reading either. So I believe you have to be, again, objective in this. And I think the club are not going to make an emotive decision. It's not going to be based on him falling out with one player or a particular game they lost. It's going to be based on everything. And do they feel, with the direction the club's going to go in, is this going to be the best match for us improving as quickly as possible? Of course, there are lots of positives, and there are elements of getting rid of him that make me nervous as well. I'm not sitting here pretending to know more than anybody else when it comes to football. But my problem is the people I'm not listening to in these conversations are people that are being very emotional, very subjective, and won't even hear the other person's side. That closed-mindedness has got to stop, in my personal opinion. We have a super chat here that says, how do you feel about Man United fans mocking Arsenal fans about their season when they essentially had the same season as Arsenal had in 2019-20? Well, that's why I'm not doing it, because there's obviously clips out there somewhere of me stating that it wasn't a better season overall in terms of back then. I would have preferred to have been in the position Man United were in, the direction we were going at the time. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite on that one. Equally, the last thing on my mind yesterday was Arsenal. Just wasn't. I was focused on Rashford. I was focused on my captain, Bruno Fernandes. I was heavily focused on the two teenagers in Mainu and Garnacho doing the history and the academy of Man United proud. I was focused on stopping City doing a double. I was a little focused on actual teams that were impacted by yesterday, with Chelsea going out the Europa League and Newcastle missing out overall. But predominantly, I was focused on Man United and the sort of the beauty of winning that and the magic, which I believe the FA Cup is. So the Man United fans focusing on that, fair play to them. If that's what they enjoy doing. For me personally, the last thing on my mind yesterday was Arsenal. I get the banter and I get it, but it's the last thing on my mind personally. Sully here says, FA Cup success is not a measure for an elite manager. Our fan base are emotional freaks. We need Zerbi to develop these young ballers, or maybe McKenna. No, look, an FA Cup is definitely a measurement of success. Of course it is. But you have to consider your league position. You have to consider your performances. You have to look at the development. You have to look at a manager's track record in terms of what he's picked. The club also has to look at how it wants to play football moving forward, because the squad has got to be built to that. Then they have to look at the manager and ask themselves, do we believe this manager can coach that football? Some of it isn't even about what's happened prior. It's about what you're going to do moving forward. You know, if I buy a restaurant and they've got an amazing chef and one of the best steak chefs in the country, but I'm going to be changing the restaurant because the local area demands that we start to serve Chinese food, but this chef is not very well versed at making Chinese cuisine. Even if he's brilliant, I still may need to move him on. So I sometimes think we always look at this as good and bad. And for me, it isn't. It's just about understanding the overall picture. I love how Butcher jested Carl Walker to step out for a fight. He is a World Cup winner. Walker has to respect him and focus on being loyal to his wife. Then again, City aren't a club built on moral values. Oh, listen, look, as a Man United fan, when it comes to, you know, we were in a very big glass house, Frank Stones, if we're talking about our players' morality when it comes to partners and wives and stuff. So I'm not going to throw a shade there. But listen, I saw a lot of City pundits yesterday talking about players like John Stones not being match fit and being slightly off the pace. And I just thought, what a load of baloney. Again, Varane and Lissandro that have barely kicked a ball all season. In reality, look at the performance those two boys put in. Absolute quality. It really, really was quality. Moving on from this story and going into some of the others today, obviously we know about Zerbi. And if you haven't seen it, we shared this earlier on today, that this was sent to me by a very, 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 very credible source who I asked about the Zerbi links. And he said here that Zerbi to Chelsea is nailed on from one source. He said it was virtually a done deal waiting to be announced from the 1st of June. Now, as we did a video on this a little bit earlier on today, and I know there's a number of Chelsea fans that are exceedingly excited about this potential move. There are some others, not so much, and I've seen that reaction online as well. But De Zerbi to Chelsea, we spoke about this 2 or 3 days ago, and there was no credible links. There was some historic links. The bookmakers were saying something, but he wasn't mentioned on the shortlist. He wasn't being discussed at all. But in the last sort of 48 hours, this situation has changed dramatically, and I'm not going to lie. I wanted him, so I'm trying to turn this fan up a little bit because it's very warm where I am today. And I'm frustrated because I think there's a very, very, very talented manager in De Zerbi. Some people don't, and we've been through that a million times on the football terrace, but I really believe there is. I believe there is a manager there who plays beautiful football. Yes, this season, on paper, Brighton went backwards. But what do we expect when 3 seasons running, the club, part of their model, has sold their best players? And we're expecting the manager to keep making a team better and better, even though he's selling their best players. Put that logic into any other club. I'm not attacking Brighton. I understand their model. I get why they have to do it. But if you take any member of any team in Europe right now that's brilliant, Madrid, who else? Arsenal are very good. Who else? Of course, City. If over the last 3 summers, you on average sold their best 3 players each year and replaced those individuals with up-and-coming talent, do you truly believe those clubs would be as good as they are now? They'd still be good, but would they really be as good? If this City team didn't have Foden, Haaland, Stones, Rodri, Edison, right? If Arsenal didn't have Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, would they really be as good as they are now? That's why I don't understand the Zerbi criticism. I get the question marks because he hasn't been at that level yet. But the way people criticize him as though he is the reason that his teams have gone backwards, I find it absolutely baffling. So if this news is true, that Chelsea are close to getting this done deal announced. Now, by the way, that's one source into this journalist, which is why the titles have got the question mark there, because there's one source that's saying he believes it's nailed on. He has been, a lot of other journalists have now mentioned that he's on the shortlist, but I really want to gauge the views and the opinions of Chelsea fans watching. I really, really do. Real Madrid literally did that last summer. League Gun, I hope you're well, mate. So Real Madrid, 3 summers running, have sold their best players. Come on, Lee. When they sold their best players 3 years running, let's have a little look. I miss doing streams with you, bro. I used to love our streams. Let's just have a little look. I know Benzema left. He was very, very good. But, of course, they replaced him with Jude Bellingham. So they didn't replace him with, like, an 18-year-old kid who's never kicked a ball at the highest level. They did replace him with Jude Bellingham. I know he's not a striker, but in the positions he covered. Who'd they get rid of last year? So last year, Benzema went. Who else left last season? Eden Hazard. We're going to put him on that list? No, we're not. Asensio, he's not one of their best players. I don't even know the other players are. The year before that, Casemiro left, so I'll give you that. But who did they bring in? They brought in Tchouaméni. When it comes to him going out. Year before that, they lost Varane and they lost Odegaard. Now, you hate Odegaard, so you won't agree. Well, you don't think Odegaard's very good. I don't want to misquote you. But Varane left and they brought in David Alaba and they brought in Camavinga. So come on now, Lee. My G, I know you got a laughing emoji on there. That made me laugh. Big up yourself. But as I say, look, from my perspective, I like De Zerbi, but I do get the question marks. And I understand elements people don't like. And I also understand how the tacticos and the football hipsters can make you dislike someone by the way they talk about things, and I get it. Obviously, I'm not a football hipster or a tactico by any stretch of the imagination, but I really rate him. If Chelsea bring him in, I think you'll see a very, very, very much improved Chelsea team next year. If we get rid of Ten Hag, I'd like him to come in and do the business. I really, really would. But it looks like Chelsea are going to. But I know MAtti. I just see you, MAtti. I just see MAtti here. But Terry, when he had control, Terry, of every club he had, they went backwards. Who do you mean? The Zerbi. Terry, see, okay, you guys are telling me to go check out a tweet as well. Sorry, I wasn't reading that. I was chatting to my old mate Lee. When I say my old mate, that doesn't mean someone that used to be my mate. It means my old mate. It's a Cockney thing. De Zerbi wants to improve himself, that he's right fit for man. Yeah, listen, I'm not surprised to see that. I'm not surprised to see that that comment there. Roberto De Zerbi wants to prove himself that he is the right fit for Chelsea. And you know what's really interesting, though, when he says control of clubs, and we were talking about this the other day, and I want to be fair about this, is so when you look at the situation with De Zerbi and him saying he wants control over transfers, I'd love to chat the journalists that have access. This is where I would challenge them. What does it mean? What does it look like? Does it mean he only wants his players that he wants and only wants to sell people he wants? Or is it a case of, I'd love to be able to turn around and say, please don't sell my best 3 or 4 players. please don't sell them again. So I have to start developing a new group to understand our style and everything else. And it becomes a bit like Groundhog Day. I'd love to have the access to ask those questions because it's such an open-ended point that he wants control over transfers. What does that mean? I'd love to understand what it means, but I think he'd be an excellent signing. I really do. We can do some super chats from you guys soon as well. So they've done the exact same thing what you said, didn't they? Signed young players to replace proper players. They have certainly signed some young players, but I wouldn't put the Tchouaménis and the Camavingas and the Jude Bellinghams onto the same level as signing a 17-year-old unknown kid from South America that's never kicked a ball in Europe. I think there's a fundamental difference in that approach. Real Madrid are buying individuals that have already played a fair amount of games, some that have already won trophies, that are already some of the most highly coveted young players in the world, and they've joined a team that's already full of experience, which helps knit them together. At the same time, they've let a couple, again, Varane and Casemiro, when they left and joined Man United, I was told, Lee, not by you, but a lot of people said they're past their best. So they weren't maybe at the peak of their powers when they quite left, or they were just about to start waning. But what they didn't do is lose 2 or 3 each summer. So I would agree with you if 3 years ago they lost Benzema, Casemiro, Varane one summer. The following summer they lost Mudryk. They lost Mahalo Mudryk. Not Mahalo. Why do I keep saying Mahalo Mudryk? It's honestly my dyslexia. Luka Modric. They lost Toni Kroos, and they lost Vinicius Jr. And then last summer, they lost Rodrigo, and they lost Rudiger, and they lost, I don't know, the goalkeeper. They lost like that amount each year, 3 years running, and everyone they replaced them with was an unknown kid that's never really kicked a ball in Europe. Then I would say it's the same thing, but I do think there's fundamental difference, brother. I really, really do. I really, really do. Plus, the baseline, the overarching quality of the squads also plays a really big part in that as well, I think. I really, really do. No way does De Zerbi survive at Chelsea. And he might not. And this is the thing for me. I think you have to be objective when it comes to these conversations. I rate him and like him doesn't mean I'm going to be right. You know, we all get things right. When I predicted the 3 days ago now, that Man United would beat City in the final, I said it'd be 2-1. I said they'd have all the ball. I said we'd beat them on the transition. I said, I think we're going to have some togetherness today and fight our way through. I got laughed at. No ball knowledge. It happened. But that doesn't make me think I've got superior ball knowledge to anybody else, because there'll be other predictions that I get wrong. I think De Zerbi could be successful, but there are question marks over Chelsea that I think are away from De Zerbi. The one thing about their board don't fill me with confidence. There's something about their board. I was really, again, this is something I got wrong. I thought their board would have done a much better job since they came in 2 years ago. I really believed in what they sold. They sold a really good story. Now, I know Lee Gunner will agree with this because he was like me. He used to be a salesman, so was I. I was sold by what they said, but their delivery of what they've sold is nowhere near the beauty of the sales pitch so far. Now, they could get it right this time round. That's where it can still fall apart, in my personal and humble opinion. In other news, before we go to the calls, Olise to Chelsea is a really interesting story as well. Now, this is an absolute dynamite player, in my opinion. I think he's an absolute baller in the making. This article here states that Chelsea to make a 60 million Michael Olise move amid their manager hunt. This is in case you missed it. Chelsea are reportedly set for a massive summer move for Olise. The Blues almost re-signed their former Reading star last summer, only for the deal to eventually fall through and Olise to end up signing a new contract. However, Chelsea are evidently undeterred by the setback, and the Daily Mirror reporting they will make a fresh £60 million play for Olise this summer, regardless who ends up succeeding Pochettino. Now, again, listen, I'd love Olise at Man United. We're also the other club that is linked to him. But I'll be honest with you, this I'd love to get him, but I've just got this feeling that Chelsea are going to do Chelsea things. And I mean that in a way of praising Chelsea, I suppose. That will they pay above the buyout clause again and then pay more in installments? Will they pay more salary? Like they've got a cap on their salary, so maybe that's not going to happen now. I don't know why I don't have confidence going up against Chelsea for this particular player. It's just something about it fills me with a little bit of dread. And maybe it's because I really want him. And in that desire of wanting him, I'm kind of worried it will fall apart. But he's a top player. And the one thing I would say is, where does he play at Chelsea? You would say maybe the right-hand side, but what does that mean for Madueke? There is talk from Chelsea sort of quarters that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Nkunku playing more games next year. And if he's fit, he kind of plays off the striker in the 10. If he's playing more regularly, where does that push the young player of the year in Cole Palmer? That's going to push him more to the right. If he's on the right, where's Olise going to play? Who himself can play central. That would be how I'd be selling it to Olise, to not go there and maybe come to Manchester United, who should have an opening berth for him with the kind of exits that we've got coming up. But the reports are there that Chelsea may be putting in a bid. So I'd love to get your takes, views, and opinions on that one, people. What does it say here? I love this comment. It says, this guy uses buzzwords to make them seem like he's saying something. Talks air most of them. I haven't heard that word in ages. He says words like objective, nuanced, unbiased, but he's everything but that. Ten Hag in. But I am objective. Even on the Ten Hag situation, how is this not objective? You're saying buzzwords. It's a little bit of an ad hominem attack. But if you explain how this isn't objective, I'll concede to your point. I don't personally think it's the right way for us to move forward. But if the football decision makers, which I've been asking for, deem it so, I'm going to get behind it and support it. I'm not going to have a personal agenda. Please tell me how that is. For me, that's like the definition of being objective. I'm not allowing my personal wants and desires to override my agendas. Come on now, my friend. That's literally, and maybe that's what actually triggers you. Maybe you want me to be agenda-based so you can have a go at me, but they're not being agenda. And this is what I love about the internet. You'll have it. Lee's been in the comments, so I'll give you an example. Lee is quite polarized on certain football points. For instance, Arteta. And some people hate that because it's kind of all or nothing. Excuse the pun. Yet there are other people that hate people like me that are a little bit more objective, and we have an opinion, but we see the other side and we kind of talk about both sides. Some people see that as two-faced, or I don't. It's just showing an understanding of the other side. But I suppose that's the beauty of what we all do, is that there's horses for courses, different personalities, and it's what makes our industry so brilliant to watch. Objective is a buzzword. Yeah, I didn't know objective was a buzzword. I didn't even know. I haven't actually ever Googled this. Buzzword meaning. Let me Google what it means. Buzzword, a word or phrase, often an item of jargon that is fashionable at a particular time or in a particular context. I mean, I suppose you could apply that to anything, to be fair, and to be objective. You could apply that to anything, but it's often jargon. And I don't think the word objective is jargon, personally. Do you know what I mean? It's, I don't know. I wouldn't consider it a buzzword, but there we go. That's me. That's me. Sorry. They want you to be like Goldbridge, Terry. Well, listen, I've got respect for what Mark Goldbridge has done, but I'm not him. I'm only ever going to be myself. And if people don't like it, they don't have to tune in. No one is asking you to be here. No one is, you ain't paying for it. Even if you don't like it, it's free, for fuck's sake. Relax your brains. Buzzword. Do you know what is a buzzword now, though? Is the word gaslighting. Like that, just everybody uses it. People use it when you challenge their opinion with a fact. You'll turn around and go, okay, you've said that Bruno doesn't. So someone will say this. I'll go, Bruno Fernandes doesn't turn up in big matches. You say, well, I've seen him perform in the last 3 finals. But on top of that, Bruno Fernandes has played seven semi-finals and 4 finals across Europe and domestic cup competitions for Manchester United. Across those games, he has scored or assisted 12 goals. And people will go, that's gaslighting. It's like, no, it's not gaslighting. I'm giving you a fact, right? I'm giving you a fundamental fact. Plus, I can talk about the actual performances and what I think he's done in those games for me to say I think he's delivered. It's not gaslighting. You're just using the word gaslighting because it has a very negative connotation. Because gaslighting is what horrible people do to convince you that your reality isn't real. I'm giving you a fact. I'm not trying to change reality, bruv. Yeah, but by the way, this shirt is amazing. And you are jealous of it. You are jealous that you don't have the confidence to wear it, my bro. I do. I like it. And remember, as a young kid, I love like jazz and standards. I like sort of the old swing music, people like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. I was the kid that walked to school and everyone was listening to whatever they're listening to. And I'd have my Walkman or my Discman, them days, bruv. And I'd have Frank Sinatra playing or Sammy Davis Jr. And I used to get laughed at by the other kids. Like kids I didn't know, not my friends. Because who'd ever get laughed at by their friends? Be weird. And I remember people saying, you're not embarrassed. I was like, why? I don't need anybody else's approval. That was me as a 13-year-old. I was like, I like the music. I don't need that kid who I don't know to go, oh, Terry's cool because he listens to the same music as me. No, I don't like using the word cool. For me, conforming, I don't really like the latest drum and bass track, but I'm going to listen to it because I've got to fit in. That for me is the most uncool thing, if you want to use that word, you could ever do. Like that, for conforming and being a sheep, not my thing. If you like something truly and you truly like it, go do it. But don't just do things for the sake of doing them, man. Fuck that shit. We won yesterday, but I still would get a new gaffer. Yeah, I hear that, bro. I hear that. I didn't like the questioning by the BBC either, by the way. I get why they did it. I do get why they did it, but I didn't like it. Terry was listening to ABBA or Barbie Girl. I actually have a recent download on my phone that's ABBA, actually. I'll show you. I'm very, very comfortable about this stuff because I don't need you to actually listen. I've been listening to Brian McKnight today, actually. But recent. See, this is how weird my music taste is. They're my recent downloads. I don't know if you can see it right, so it might zoom in. So the first 2 downloads on here, I haven't listened to in a while. It's a bit of George Benson. We then scroll down a little bit, and you've got like, what else we got on here? When it focuses, then you got a little bit of Atlantic Star. Then there's a bit of Oasis. Then a little bit of Lamar. That was more for the kids because they enjoyed that. Then what else we got on here? It's such a weird mix, right? Then you scroll. We have another little. Then you've got a little bit of Frank Sinatra, right? Then you got a bit of Jodeci. Then there's a bit of Chris Walker. There's a bit of James Arthur. Then I got a bit of Destiny's Child. Then there's some Disney music. I won't lie, that was for Freya, to be fair. And then we keep going down, and then you've got a little bit of Luther Vandross, all right? And then there's a little bit, there's a few Filipino singers I like listening to on YouTube. So I've got a few of their songs. Then you get to like a bit of Drake, right? It'll zoom in. Then there's a bit of Drake. Then there's a bit of Adele. But I just do me. Hey, Chris Walker in the house. Yeah, Chris Walker, absolute banging singer. But remember, if you like a certain type of music, don't stop listening to it because other people think it's rubbish or geeky or crap. Don't bow down to them, man. Do your thing. Terry's a certified lover boy. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Terry, why was you listening to North London forever? That isn't on my phone. That isn't on my phone. But there we go. There we go. Final bit of news before we start taking the calls and getting people's opinions. Saw this on the Evening Standard. It comes on football.london, and it's regarding Isak to Arsenal. And it says here that have Arsenal been handed a huge boost in the race to sign Alexander Isak? Essentially, we don't have to read it all out loud. I wanted to talk about it because I did think it was a little bit misleading, if I'm being honest. It basically says they think they've got a chance now because Newcastle have got no European football. We know Newcastle have got some FFP problems. So maybe me saying misleading is the wrong way to look at it. My view is Arsenal might get Bruno Guimaraes. And if they do, they're not getting Isak as well. Simple as that. Do I think the Isak deal was as dead in the water as some people are making out? Not quite. Not quite. I think one of those two is going to leave Newcastle this summer. I believe they have the financial fair play or PSR issues that were discussed before. However, being out of Europe might actually help them. You can lose more money if you're not in Europe than if you're in it. So that might actually help their situation. But the links to Isak don't go away. The links to Bruno Guimaraes don't go away. And I'd love to get Arsenal fans' opinion on which of the two they would like, which of the two that they think is more likely. I saw this link and I thought I'd put it in and we'd have a little conversation and talk about it because the deal is still on, essentially. It could still happen. But the way this story from football.london has kind of been repurposed and pushed out, I kind of felt like I wanted to address it, put it up on the screen, talk to you guys very briefly about it as well. For me, I think it's doable. But Arsenal are going to have to pay big money. They're talking 100+ million, and I sort of feel like he's really good. I still don't know why Arsenal don't go for Ivan Toney. I keep hearing nonsense about he's got a bad attitude. Where are these stories from? He's got a bad attitude. Now, again, I'd like Toney at Man United, so I'm not chatting nonsense here. Isak's really good. I think Toney in the Arsenal system could be every bit as potent. Maybe in different ways. I really do think he could do bits. Terry, City will trigger Bruno Guimaraes' release clause. But that's also part of this. Because if Bruno Guimaraes ends up going to City, then maybe it opens up the door for Isak to Arsenal. Because although they say they don't want to sell, I still don't think Newcastle were in a position where players will want to stay. And I know that will trigger some Newcastle fans. What I mean is they're not in the position to pay exorbitant amounts of money yet to make people stay. They're not in a position where they can do what Chelsea and City did at the beginning of their billionaire takeovers, where they can spend world record levels of money and build squads quicker. It's going to take time. And that's why most level-headed Newcastle fans said for us to get to the very pinnacle on a regular basis, it's a 5 to 10 year project. Within that period, you will lose some of your talent because theoretically, on paper, Newcastle have got all the time in the world to get to that level. Players don't. So it's going to be a real interesting one to see how this plays out. Some super chats before I bring some calls on. We've got Matt. We've got Tevin backstage. Hey, it's Tevin, isn't it? Yes, Tevin. We've got Pav as well that's going to come on. This here from Trader IQ. He says, Guna, but was a win for football, not just United yesterday. I appreciate that. Not everyone will, but I do. Ten Hag has to stay. 2 cups in 2 years. Let's see what he can do with the new infrastructure and maybe with less injuries. We must all stay United either way. But that's my view, KP. I don't agree with keeping Ten Hag, but either way, I'm going to be United, if you want to use that phrase. I'm going to get behind it. I'm going to be supportive because that's my nature in these environments. But I do understand that some people won't because everybody's different. You know, I'm going to use that buzzword again, objectivity. I can't get behind an ownership that sacks a guy who wins trophies for bums like Poch, Frank, etc. McKenna way too soon. Brighton is good for him. Listen, Owen, I understand that logic. I don't think your logic is wrong. It's a theory. It's because Poch or Frank or McKenna could be more successful. And then you look back and go, I get it. But it holds water what you're saying. It's not illogical what you're saying. Ten Hag probably has a better CV than most of these managers. But are you viewing it based just on the CV? You have to take into consideration the relationships that he has with people at the club, what they've seen in their review over the last 3 or 4 months. We are not privy to any of that information. So to simply just say, well, he's won 2 trophies, therefore there's no reason to move him on, well, then there might be. We just may not be privy to it. Dude, City without Rodri was losing every game. Yeah, imagine losing 5, 6, 7 of your best players, but not replacing them with the very best young, like, replacements or alternatives in the world. It's just different. We won yesterday, but I would still get a new gaffer. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I already done that one from Ronnie. Hoyler must be having a massive hangover today. The whole Man United team that drinks must be. And fair play to them. Absolutely fair play to them. They deserved it. Or maybe it's because Olise loves London and was from the academy where his brother currently plays, and Chelsea have been interested longer in him. Some reasons. Fair point. I didn't know all of that, to be fair. I didn't know all of that. So yeah, listen, there are reasons why he would pick Chelsea over Manchester United. Of course there are. And I would never, you know me well enough and long enough, Blaze, to know I don't do this whole Chelsea are not in the Champions League or in the Europa League, so no one wants to go there. They've still got Paul. They're still Chelsea Football Club. I just don't get involved in those debates. They're stupid. Brother, George Benson, that's all I needed to see. I'm a big Jazz fan. Look up Chuck. Do you know what? Yeah, okay. I'll take a little. I'm going to Google that now, right? And I'm going to save it. Why do I feel like I was? No, he wasn't who I was thinking of, actually. Okay. Oh, he passed away not long ago. I'll take a little look, my bro. 110%. I'll have a little listen. Yeah, I like it. I like a bit of everything. I'm a bit of a I'm kind of like that. Yeah, George Benson's the one though, bruv. Just I go through phases where I'll listen to loads of George Benson, and then I'll hit another phase and I'll listen to loads of somebody else, and yeah, I like it. Evening, Terry. FFG have not backed Klopp buying players, but they have got a manager appointment right as owners. They sacked Hodgson, got Sekeni, gave him time to understand Liverpool. I trust them appointments as new managers. Look, you've got Edwards at the club as well, and I think you guys should be trusting Edwards. I really do think you should be trusting him. I do. Right, time for the panel now to come out and have their say. Pav's here, Matt's here, Tevin's here with me. Welcome back, gentlemen. Pav, I know you've been waiting the longest, bro.
Big up.
Big up, everyone. If you're there, Pav, I'd love to get your take on the situation after yesterday winning the FA Cup. What do you think the club should do with Ten Hag?
Listen, mate, I was buzzing after that FA Cup, not only because we won it, because Newcastle didn't get European football, Chelsea dropped down to the Conference League, and today Leeds didn't win the playoff, so it's good all round. And the Leeds thing was probably more I was more happy about the Leeds thing because I heard that if they didn't get this playoff, if they didn't win this playoff, they're like financially kind of in trouble. They got to raise 100 mil. So let's hope that club goes down to the League One, League Two. Don't like them, don't like their fans, don't like anything about them. But yeah, the FA Cup, look, I've been Ten Hag out probably since the second or third week since last season started. I wasn't happy with what I saw pre-season. I wasn't happy with, I'd say, 90% of the signings. I kind of wanted the guy to build the spine for that from the back. I knew there was injury-prone players last year, and he didn't do that. And obviously it bit him in the arse because most of our issues were because of injuries, and especially in defence. And that's why I wanted him out, because I was like, nah, this guy was supposed to change us, but it's not happening. And then we won the FA Cup yesterday. And for some reason, my mind turned a little bit, and I'm thinking he's won 2 cups now, back to back. More cups than some of these great managers that people like to come on here and talk about, rave about, aka Arteta. And I'm thinking, do we give him another year? He's got 1 more year left on his contract. Do we let him have it, but without the issues of transfers and stuff? Like, Ineos have come in. It's on you now. Everything that happens from now on, it's on you. Transfers, the people you appoint in the club, the managers, it's all on you. And I've got to a point now as well. I'm not bothered if Ten Hag stays or goes. Even though, like, if it was up to me, I'd probably sack him because I was still annoyed with what happened in the league. It was probably one of the worst seasons that I've had to endure. But yeah, I don't mind. If he stays, he stays. Look, he's won us 2 cups, and football is about trophies, as Lee Gunner says. He always says this, doesn't he? It's about trophies.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's look, in the end, that's where you want to get to. Of course, you have to look at other areas. We are a team that hasn't competed for a league title in 10 years, and we have to strive towards getting back to that at the same time. I want to be greedy. I want both of these things at exactly the same time. I was a little bit like you yesterday. I was because I didn't get to watch the aftermath because obviously I go live. But when I settled down last night, I put back the BBC iPlayer on, and I went back to about 5 minutes before full time, watched it all, and it was beautiful. Like some people have accused Rashford of why is he crying? Well, it means something. I had tears in my eyes when he won, and I wasn't playing. I wasn't born in Manchester. I can understand it. I felt for Ten Hag with the way he was being questioned. I got the questioning from Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer.
Yeah, I thought that disgraceful. And I don't know why people still watch the BBC. I watched it on ITV. It wasn't as bad, like the questions and whatnot. You had like Roy Keane, Roy Ian, I think Lescott on there. I don't know the presenter's name, but they were pretty much respectful. And then when I went back and looked at that, Alan Shearer, I was like, bro, I swear if one of the players would just smack that guy in his bald head, bro, as he was asking him questions, I was just like, nah, you're a waste, man.
Yeah,
and then obviously he hates us. We know he hates us, but it's a final. Don't be disrespectful.
I get that. And look, for me, as I've said for a lot of this season, I felt for so long like it was right for Ten Hag to go based on how we were performing. The bit that's frustrating me the most is I don't know if you watched the show. I know Tevin and Matt were definitely both there. But when we played Arsenal, I came on the show and said, disappointing to lose, but I noticed some fundamental changes in the shape, in and out of possession. We were tucking our kind of inside forwards. Rashford, it would have been Ahmad and Garnacho in those games. We were tucking them inside out of possession. We had this 4-3-3 where the sort of the 2 3s sit in a kind of a bit of a diagonal line. A Tactico might call it the 4-3-3 slant or something, right, and give it a weird name, but it was a 4-3-3. We were sitting differently, and we were hard for Arsenal to break down at times, but people put it down to Arsenal playing within themselves. And I thought, okay, I'll take that feedback. But we did it against Newcastle, we did it against Brighton, we won both those games, and we did it again yesterday, and we won the game. And I didn't bring this up yesterday because it wasn't the time or the place, but I did have a sense of frustration of why didn't you make these changes months ago? Make it harder for teams to break us down, would have won more points, would have been in a better position, and more people would have stayed with you. The media would have probably looked at the injuries and gone, you know what, they played well today, but they just didn't quite have the quality to get over the line. And of course, we want to evolve from that. I don't want to play that football all the time.
But that's
I'd love to, sorry, let me finish, Matt. I'd love to build up to a point where we could go toe-to-toe with Man City and actually take them on the field of play. And that takes time to get to, and I understand that. But that, for me, is where, although it was brilliant, we won a trophy yesterday, when it comes to the ruthless decision-making that needs to happen to get back to winning league titles, we have to look at it and say that people internally have to make the decision, do we believe Ten Hag and co, his coaching team, can make us play that well for 35 to 38 league games a season? That's a very different conversation, because winning FA Cups and League Cups, I love it. I don't want to stop. But I want to be a team that can win the Premier League. Nothing to guarantee, but you want to be able to win it. And until you're able to win your domestic league title, you're not good enough. Does that make sense overall? So trophies is where you want to be, but you want to be able to win all your trophies. And if we can't win the Prem, and if we're laughed at as a contender for the Champions League, we're not where we want to be. But that's why, for me, it's a case of if we do keep him, it's not about Ten Hag. I trust the Baradas, I trust the Dan Ashworths, I trust the football decision makers at the club, because that is the bit that I am subjective about. It's what I've been asking for. So I'd be a bit of a hypocrite to get what I want and then moan about them making their decisions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you mentioned about why weren't he doing this a few months, but this is where Ten Hag's, like the inners would say, because he didn't have his players, they were injured. But then part of the problem was when these players were coming back, he'd bring them back too early. The medical team was abysmal. You had players coming back too early, and they were getting injured again. And like I said, he did it. Like I wanted to see our spine get built this season, and we knew from last season. Obviously, Lissandro had a massive injury towards the end. We knew that Varane was injury prone, and obviously we had bids for Maguire and whatnot. Luke Shaw's injury prone, play centre back. And I was just thinking, why didn't we bring in 2 defenders in the summer? Because if we had the better spine, we wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. This is why I said many times that I blame him for these transfers, because you could have put a stop to have people like Mount coming in. I didn't even think we needed to sell De Gea at the time, but you bought in Onana, done well yesterday, just what I say that. But some of the signings, it was just pointless. Like we bought in Amrabat, who was injured at the start of the season. We bought in Højlund, who was injured at the start of the season. Like I didn't get what we were doing in the summer.
Yeah, no,
I was annoyed.
I agree with that, but we also brought in Amrabat, barely played him, playing for the last 4 games of the season. He started to show us exactly why a lot of us were excited.
The World Cup Amrabat, we all saw.
And that's it. But Pav, look, I hear you on that. I want to go to some of the other boys before the end of the show. Tevin, which are the subjects you here to talk about today?
Nah, it's just big up everybody. It's just the fact that Man United somehow, some way managed to pull it off again. And this is why, regardless of whether I hate you guys, yes or no, I have to give you guys props. You guys just know how to pick up silverware. I have to give credit. It is typical for Man City to have a general perfect end of the season and beat us or tip us out to a title and then have an absolute shocker in a final. I mean, that first goal, I have no idea what the defender or Ortega was doing. And it's like Ortega couldn't make a mistake when Son was 1-on-1. No, he had to be perfect then. But yesterday, I don't know, but I have to give you guys props. And I think you guys are in a similar situation as Chelsea is, where you guys are crap for basically most of the season. And in the last 4 to 5 games, you guys started to see a system that the fans have been crying out for the entire season. For whatever reason, both managers chose to implement players in their correct position and use the correct styles. And I don't want to sound like Dan in terms of playing players in their right position at all the times, but it seems that is what happened towards the end of the season. And I have no idea why it took so long, because Manchester United in the final 4 or 5 games, as you've alluded to, as well as the final, you guys look like a much tougher team to beat. Whereas before, you guys are being run through like, I mean, I can use many different analogies, but you know what I'm talking about. I just don't understand. But I will say big up to you, big up to Manchester United and picking up a cup. And, you know, the better than season Arsenal trophy is also there as well that you guys have picked up.
Yeah, look, I think it's, again, that's an interesting conversation, because I view it as it's a more successful season, better in terms of we weren't better in the Premier League, but we were definitely better in the cup competitions. I want to ask you about Chelsea, Tevin. Obviously, they're looking, the bookmakers now have De Zerbi as the favourite to take over. There are some sources saying they believe it's as good as a done deal. It's now on to happen. What is your take on Chelsea going from Poch to De Zerbi, and do you think he'll improve them?
See, that is a better link than the Thomas Tuchels, than I was seeing Mourinho, I was seeing the McKennas of the world. De Zerbi seems to be a better target after losing out on Pochettino, because I don't think they have similar styles, but I think the way they see the game in terms of being progressive and also playing with younger players, it makes more sense for De Zerbi as a manager to come in. That makes more sense as to, it matches their I guess I would say their policy of buying young players with a lot of talent. I would see De Zerbi as a manager that can work with those players rather than a Tuchel, rather than a Mourinho. So it seems to be a better fit. I was hoping they didn't go there. I personally don't think he's that amazing of a manager, simply because I just feel he just does not pay enough attention to the defensive line. But then again, if you're looking at Brighton, they don't usually have defensive starlets or defensive stalwarts. So maybe it's the players that he has in his system that can't cope with how he wants to play. And then Chelsea, with having more talent, can probably translate to his system better. But De Zerbi, I don't think he's a fantastic manager, But I think it makes more of a sense that Chelsea would choose him over some of the other managers.
Yeah, listen, and listen. I think the defensive element. A lot of people talk about that. I think it's a fair challenge because there've definitely been defensive issues with Brighton.
Mhm.
I'm intrigued to see what he does with. I mean, Chelsea do have better players overall than Brighton, so I'm intrigued to see what he does there. How about yourself, Matt? Obviously, you know we know of the same person who sort of put this information out about the Zerbi, so you know it's nothing's guaranteed, but it seems pretty trustworthy at this point. Do you think he'll be a good appointment for your London rivals, Chelsea?
I think he'll do a decent job there. Like, I'm not really sure about this control on transfers, but like I think kind of overall, I think it's probably the best coach that they could probably get out of the shortlist because I kind of think McKenna, it's just too early for a job of that stature for him. Like I kind of think like if he goes to Brighton, that would be a fantastic job for him. You know, like that Enzo guy from Leicester. Not like I just don't really know too much of those guys, but De Zerbi I feel like could be a good appointment.
Can I ask you a question when you mentioned someone like Enzo?
Yeah.
Or De Zerbi, as Arsenal fans who back Arteta, who came to you with no experience, only having been an assistant manager, why would you question a young managers with, because McKenna, obviously De Zerbi's actually got some experience, and Enzo of Leicester, all very highly regarded within the world of football. Enzo's path is almost the same as Arteta's, but he's actually had some managerial experience. Why would you look at those as wrong, but simultaneously support and fall in love with what Arteta has done? Do you not think that Chelsea could do something similar?
When we appointed Arteta, I questioned it. Like, I don't think I was on Twitter back then, but like, I was definitely questioned about it because I was like, we've just gone from Wenger to Emery to this new guy who hasn't managed before. Yes, he's played for Arsenal, but he hasn't managed before, and I was definitely wary of that. But after that first season, I was like, I can kind of see what he's trying to build. He just didn't have the players available for him. And then gradually, you know, we kind of saw what team he was building. With Enzo, I don't really know too much about him. So, like, I don't really know his pathway. And, like, I've not really watched him much. So I can't really comment on him. But McKenna, I have heard that he was, I don't know, Olignal Solskjaer's own boy. So I think he has kind of the same sort of pathway. But I just personally think that Brighton job would be perfect for him. Because I kind of think the pressure at Man United is a whole nother level compared to Arsenal. Because they're, you know...
Yeah, but I get that. I'm talking about from a Chelsea perspective, though. I'm just intrigued. It's not trying to catch you out. It's just I'm trying to understand, especially for someone like yourself, Matt, who is such a devout sort of Arsenal fan when it comes to your respect for Mikel Arteta. It strikes me as strange that when another team's doing something similar to what you did, that you meet it with more negativity than positivity.
I think it's like I don't know, it's a very similar situation, I think. And like, I just wasn't keen on Arteta when we first announced it. So that's kind of the, like, I guess, way I'm kind of
okay.
About it.
That makes sense.
I think for me, the difference would be expectations on how, and not necessarily expectations, but how the institutions have operated, right? I think maybe this is a different Chelsea, but again, this isn't the Chelsea that we've known to be successful. Now, granted, it seems to be a different model. However, it's going to take time for the fan base, especially, to really and truly understand what they're going to need or the level of patience that they're going to need to go through this, right? Because when we got Arteta, it's not like we were flying high and winning all these trophies. Yeah, we won a couple of FA Cups and Wenger was on decline. We had a terrible season with Emery, although we missed out on top four and we got smacked in the Europa League final. So we weren't. While Arsenal fans I would say people say Arsenal fans are deluded. I think we don't have that same sense of entitlement to trophies, I feel, that Chelsea does. And I can't blame their fans for that because it's what they've been used to over the last 20 years. No, bringing in a completely different style, bringing in a completely different model where you're going with youth, it's going to require patience. It's why I am still skeptical about this direction going forward, because I'm not sure the fans will be able to behind and support it, because I'm still seeing fans now that are saying, even with the current squad, with the talent that they have, although I feel it's a talented squad, I don't feel it's a good squad because it's different. I feel talent and being good and being able to produce are different because of mistakes that you make when you're young. But some of them are saying that they should be challenging next season. And I'm saying that's crazy. However, I think that's the mentality that I can't blame them for that. So that's why I'm a little skeptical. I think it's a poison chalice for young managers at this current moment. But if they're willing to be patient, I think it could be fine. I think they'll be fine if they're patient.
And Pav, obviously Man United might be in the market for a new manager in the coming days. If the Zerbi was to come to Old Trafford, what would your take on that be, mate?
Before I answer that, why didn't Chelsea's owners just buy Brighton? It'd been so easier.
And cheaper, a lot cheaper.
I don't get it, but no, I don't mind the Zerbi, but my number one joint choice was Thomas Tuchel, Hansi Flick. But Hansi Flick is going Barca, I believe. And I'm not sure if Tommy Tuchel is going to be what Ineos are looking for, even though I think he's a good manager. Other people don't. The Zerbi would have been like third or fourth with Emery. I thought Emery had a decent season, but he signed a new contract. But I didn't want McKenna. That's what it looks like, what they're pushing for. And obviously the Southgate things are 100% now. I would never back that guy at Man United. I don't care. I'll be Southgate out from day one as soon as he signs that contract. But I don't want the club to sack Ten Hag for McKenna. If it's a Thomas Tuchel, yeah, that's fine. But I don't think there's anything else out there at the minute other than if obviously these all get the Zerbi, which looks likely now. But yeah, just have to see what happens.
I hear you on that. I just want, by the way, breaking news. Galatasaray have just been announced as champions of Turkey. I want to say well done to them, and well done to Wilfried Zaha winning your first major trophy over there. I know he hasn't played; he's been sort of in and out of the squad in the last few weeks. So I'm not too sure it's been injury or not, but fair play to him. Chelsea fan Matty's here with us. What are you saying, Matty?
Do you know what? That has to be the worst shortlist that has ever been for a managerial appointment in footballing history. Like, I'm not kidding you. I mean, what have we got? Kieran McKenna, Enzo from Leicester City. What was the other one? Thomas Frank and De Zerbi. I wonder if I open up my Cocoa Pops in the morning, maybe I might have the opportunity to go for the Chelsea job. You know, I mean, it's just, it's absolutely ridiculous. And to be honest with you, De Zerbi, I'm sorry to say it, but he ain't got no winning pedigree, mate. You know, it's just, I'm stunned that we're having to rely on De Zerbi when he doesn't have a plan B and he wants his own players. We're just swapping Poch. Again, it's just like another version of Poch. So why couldn't they just bring it? They wanted somebody like a young manager. Ruben Amorim's right there. So why didn't we go off and get Ruben Amorim? It's a beautiful style of football. You know, he's been proven to be a league winner. You know, okay, he's Portugal, but my argument is to that. Jose Mourinho came from Portuguese league, right, and was one of the most decorated managers in history. You've had all these other people as well that have done exactly the same thing. No other manager has managed another club and has gone to manage another club and has actually won the Premier League. The only one that's done that is Claudio Ranieri. So I argue that point yet again, that I think that going for De Zerbi, in my humble opinion, is awful, and it'll be. And I can see this fan base. It'll be De Zerbi out by Christmas. You know, it's going to be exactly the same thing. It's going to be exactly the same thing with Poch.
I agree with you. It's not ideal, but it's a pattern that makes sense, right? Even though it's bad, I get that you're saying it's bad. It makes sense when they move from to me at least, and this is my opinion, it makes sense to go from Poch to De Zerbi. Whether it's a sideways move, whether he's slightly worse, I think at least the profile is a little bit similar because, again, one thing you should be looking for as an institution is consistency. And if you were to get any other style of manager, then it would make no sense. But De Zerbi is more progressive like Poch was. And yeah, while I agree with you, it doesn't seem to have a winning pedigree. He doesn't seem to, as I said, I don't think he's a very good defensive coach at all. And I think Chelsea also needs to be better defensively. But it still makes sense to a degree. Amorim would have been perfect, but he seems to be in a little circus when it comes to where he wants to go and what he wants to do. So that might have been a little bit of a turn off from the Chelsea owners. But De Zerbi makes a little bit more sense than McKenna or anyone else for me. That's me personally.
Yeah.
But the only thing is that you bring in winning mentality. You know, Amorim has had a history of winning things. So instead of going for slightly average to try and win you something, why don't you just bring in winning mentality? Somebody that's actually won something. And I argue people that say that Amorim, he's doing something in Sporting Lisbon. He's like Liverpool of that league. Well, Sporting Lisbon didn't turn around to him and say, "Oh, what's your name, Ruben Amorim?" "Oh, well, come in." Like, he must have done something in order to get that.
I listen. I get your challenge. I really do get your points here. Tommy here said, "I joined as a member. Where do I get the DM? DM me on Twitter, bro, and I'll send you the link to the group chats, my friend. You ask, we can come on. I'm about to end the show, brother, but we're gonna do loads of these over the course of the summer. Terry, will I cover Chelsea in the Conference League? Yes, I cover all of the traditional top six. So yes, that will be happening.
That should be fun.
But in fairness, it's going to be on the same night that Man United are playing in the Europa. So it's going to happen. And Spurs, of course. My biggest theory is we do what Chelsea did: sack trophy-winning coaches for a risk and get worse. Remember, Chelsea were better back then than they are now. Is what
truth.
Listen, again, I totally understand that logic, and I don't think it's not lost on me whatsoever. Look, I want to thank everybody that has tuned into the show today. My panelists for coming on, my super chatters, you've been amazing. Join the Football Terrace group chat if you haven't done so already for transfer news, links for notifications. We've got a few journalists working for us this summer. They'll be posting news and stories in there for us as well, as and when they break, before it's out on the mainstream. So it's something we've done for you, just as a little bit of fun as well, I suppose. So scan that QR code or click on the link below. It's also pinned to our live comment section. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves. Oh, also, this stream is going to take you through, I believe, to the top 6 show tomorrow. So join us 6 p.m. tomorrow on Bank Holiday Monday to review this beautiful weekend of football. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon.